Building Back Better, Ramping Up, 28th March 2022. The fourth session of our Building Back Better series was conducted in March 2022 in association with CABE Foundation.
We firmly believe at Trinayani that public perception of disability will only change if we spread awareness and knowledge about disability amongst the public at large and urge them to establish contact and relationships with people with disabilities. These are the two ways we think people with disabilities are going to grow and live better lives.
Importance of accessibility.
So without access, I personally believe no person can be empowered. Having barriers, physical or otherwise, deprive people with disabilities, or for that matter anyone. It is not only people with disabilities, it could be older people, it could be other people, deprive them of their basic human rights. So therefore, I need not emphasize on having a place, having a facility, having an information accessible or communication accessible. It's well known to everyone.
Pointers to keep in mind while building ramps.
We have seen this confusion among people. Bhai, ramp de do and everything is sorted. So I asked people as to what you've done to make your building accessible. They'll say, we have given a ramp. But ramp isn't the solution for accessibility. So in addition to ramp, you also need to give a flight of step. When? The standards say if the level change is more than 300 millimeter, and if you're not given a flight of stairs, then the building is not accessible. Just to tell you some important elements, which are you have a complementary stairs with markings, you have a tactile blocks, you have 2-level handrails, so that you are helping people at 2 heights. So this is the lacuna. The gradient of the ramp preferred is 1:15. The law says 1:12, but I always say 1:12 is like you're passing with 33.5% or 34%. That is 1:12, absolute maximum. If you really want to pass with flying colors, you need to move on to 1:20. If you want to pass with moderate, then it has to be 1:15, 1:80. So, and most of the users would agree with me that the ramp gradient of 1:12 is very difficult sometimes for many people to negotiate independently, and you need assistance. Because we have seen people flipping backwards while they're ascending these ramps. Can ramp alone make a building accessible? I think yes, we discussed in the beginning, no. Because wherever the ramp or the level rises is more than 300 mm, you also need an additional flight of steps. And steps also need to have handrail on both sides. And that's something to remember. इसी नहीं ramp पे handrail लगा दिया है, stairs पे तो नहीं चढ़ने वाला है विकलांग व्यक्ति, so it is fine. No, it is not fine. Because not all people prefer a longer ramp. They prefer a shorter steps, especially ambulant disabled people. And wherever there is isolated single step, please convert it into a ramp, a good gradient ramp. Do not say, okay, we'll provide a step and also a ramp. One isolated single step is not acceptable.
What are the challenges faced by builders with respect to accessibility?
So prior to this 2020, the ramp or any accessibility feature was only considered in terms of either vehicular movement or in terms of fire engine movement. And no accessibility feature or ramp was considered for even for malls or for public buildings in DCR. So now in new unified DCR, which has come up since 2020, they have added a new chapter called barrier-free access. And in that, they have mentioned all the things like we discuss about the ramps and handrails and all other things for barrier-free access to be given. But that is just a basic and that is just a start right now. So no buildings as of now has been has been constructed considering those guidelines, or they are at approval stage, or they are just approved but not yet constructed as of now.
An architect's perspective on accessibility.
When I'm developing any commercial space, when I'm developing any residential space, the whole ideology or whole perspective towards developing them is how to get maximum out of it in terms of money, not really in terms of how the accessibility or how the sustainability is going to be part of it. It always comes later, which is a big gap, that when you are proposing a project, then at the time, what is the value addition? Does the accessibility come with? Does it add value? Until unless we add value to the, or add money to the accessibility, until unless that's been done that, it always remains a gap. So the sustainability and the accessibility always come hand in hand.
How can we encourage builders to take the right step?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about money. So you said that, but what is the answer? How do you connect those dots? What do we say to people? I mean, can we tell them that you'll make more money if you have a ramp? Can we tell them that if you make your stairways the correct width and your lift the correct size, that you'll make more money?
There are very clear-cut provisions, and there are checks and balances within the Act.
Yeah. So
municipal agencies need to be held accountable when they issue a completion certificate or when they pass a certain design.
Yeah.
Architects need to be made answerable.
Correct.
When they give a plan for submission and they self-certify that this is in compliance with the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. Yeah. And then third level check again is there. You will not get an occupancy. You will not be allowed to enter. But where are the checks and balances? Are these monitoring happening? Denying the fact that we need to ensure implementation of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. Yes. One. Second, which we find is the developmental control rules, the DCR that Kiran referred to. In each state are different. They vary. They need to be harmonized with the disability requirements so that the DCR do not allow that. Third, there has to be frequent monitoring by involving stakeholders such as the group here, doing access audits, comparing the plans and what is on the site, and taking all these people into the courts. If not disability commissioner, going to the higher courts, where not just 5 lakhs, there can be exemplary costs set out there.
Are there any legal implications for not following the rules?
Yes, there is a legal implication if someone doesn't follow. That is there, as Peter said, that 5 lakhs is just nothing and people will violate it, and then it's not going to be implemented. Every law, whether socially beneficial or otherwise, incentivize implementation. Another is you penalize people. That's the only two. I mean, then third, of course, could be you make the society more sensitive, because there is also a question how to educate people not to park. So this is the slowest is to make people understand, to sensitize people in the society, change the attitudes. That is the slowest one. Another is that if we the fine is important. Fine is necessary. Without fine, it is not possible to incentivize people. And all the countries which have implemented, laws in their respective countries, whichever law, had those penalties, higher penalties or lower penalties. So look, if we fine with a little amount, a company or an organization, the publicity it gets, the image that the company loses or the government loses is very, very expensive for them.
Key takeaways from the discussion.
Naryal sir ने बहुत अच्छी बात बोली कि the slowest process is attitudinal change, and we know that attitudinal change does not happen in a day or a week it takes consistent and repeated exposure to topics and enriched discussions and debates. And I think that's what Building Back Better series is trying to do, with the hope, because we always have to be hopeful. Things are not so bleak. The very fact that we are here discussing and about the possibilities of how ramps can be built in the proper fashion by itself is a step forward.
Feedback from one of our participants, Ms. Mehak Malik, a wheelchair user.
Cerebral palsy. I have cerebral palsy. I use wheelchair. I have been to one government center. There was no ramp.
Okay.
So it was difficult. It is difficult for us to go somewhere in government area, also in public places. And I had been one for the interview there on ramp. There was a ramp, but they had kept us shopping. So
आपको हम सजेस्ट करेंगे महक एक बात हम आपको सजेस्ट करेंगे, प्लीज टेक अ फोटोग्राफ ऑफ दैट. जैसे अभी पीटर साहब ने कहा, जो हमारा जो ऐप है, एक्सेसिबल इंडिया कैंपेन का जो ऐप है, उस ऐप के ऊपर भी फोटो डालिए उसका, और आप हमारा जो ग्रुप में जिसमें आपने ज्वाइन कर लिया होगा उसके अंदर भी फोटो और लोकेशन डाल दीजिए, तो आप भी टेकअप करेंगे, हम भी सब उस जगह को टेकअप करेंगे. तो एज अ ग्रुप यदि हम ये फीड करते हैं सारी इंफॉर्मेशन, तो उसको हम कॉन्स्टेंटली डालेंगे और विल टेक अप विद द राइट अथॉरिटीज. सो यू जॉइन दिस ग्रुप.
Building Back Better is our annual campaign. We will continue conducting such sessions to create awareness about accessibility. For more details, email us at ritika@trinayani.org or call at +91 976 935 7390. Follow us on our social media handles for regular updates.